Hello, hello, and welcome back to another Crystallize live stream. Today I'm joined by Vasil. He's a front-end developer here at Crystallize. Do you want us to give us a quick intro, Vasil?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Vasil, and as Daniel said, I'm a front-end engineer at Crystallize. I'm a big fan of performance, so always trying to improve it, squeeze a few megabytes or kilobytes and a few seconds. It's always important. So that's where I try to go.
Yeah. And in today's live stream, we're going to talk about responsive images using the source set and the sizes attributes on the figure or picture image HTML tags, and how with that we can give users a really good experience on the website, and also how can that improve your site speed. And without further ado, let us get started.
Great.
Yeah.
So let me first set the scene here, so you know what we are looking at. As you can see here, this is a very simple product page where we have a product image and then a product title with the price and the description. It's fairly simple. And this product page is actually powered by Crystallize, or the product is defined on the backend on our headless e-commerce platform. And this is the product. And as you can see here, if I go and change the price, for example, I say this is $42, and I publish this change, after going back to my page, to my product and refreshing, I get the new price. So this page is powered by Crystallize, and that's where the data lives. So quite often we come across problems with rendering images, and then they mainly come from the fact that we render either too big images or we render images that are not in appropriate format. And what we'll try to look today is kind of different techniques that can be applied to actually improve that and gain some performance, which leads then to better score on Google and better user experience and so on. So let's start here. So I'll just refresh this page and then let's see what happens. As you can see, like the loading of this image is quite choppy. It's first
It takes a bit of time.
It takes a little bit of time. It shows a little bit, and then it jumps, pushes content down, and it's kind of bad user experience. So let's try to understand why this happens, right? So I'll go and inspect the image. And as you can see, the way that the image is rendered on the page is just by using a simple image tag. And if I hover over the source, you actually get to see that the real image size is 5,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels when we actually render 700 by 500 pixels on the
It's
on the
way above what we need.
Yeah, it's much bigger, and on top of that, it's even like almost 4 megabytes. So imagine that every time you have a new customer or a new user visiting your page, and then they need to go through like this, they need to download this 4 megabytes just to see this image. I think this is definitely overkill. And then the image is over here also on the network tab. Okay. I just need to figure out.
You have to clear the input, I guess. You have something. Yeah.
Yeah. And this here is the image with the 4 megabytes. Cool. So let me show you like how is the code behind these looks. So this is the code that renders the whole page. And over here we're having this product image component, which I defined, and then the product image component, we're just passing the source of the image that we want to render. And the product image component is pretty much straightforward. It's using a simple image tag where we feed the source, and it has some default attributes for it. So this is quite standard approach to render images on the web today. And I think this is quite bad because actually HTML developed so much, and kind of the whole web developed so much that it gives us much more flexibility and power to actually render, give the user better experience by just providing exactly what they need. And this is where actually the responsive images comes. So let's try to look and see how we can improve the performance and loading of this image. To do that, we're going to use the picture HTML tag. This is a new HTML5 HTML tag. I mean, it's new. I'm saying that because some fairly new, some old browsers like Internet Explorer may not support it. But what is good is that the way that it works, actually, so we have here the picture tag, and then inside we just pass the same image component. And what is good here is that if you visit this on some old browser, let's say Internet Explorer, for whatever reason, if you still have it, the picture tag is not supported, so the browser will just look at what is inside and then render the image. So the end user experience is not broken, it's going to be still the same. And the way that this looks on the page is that if you come, we see that the rendering is the same, we just have the picture tag around. Okay, but what actually the picture tag allow us to do? This is the important part, right? So the picture tag gives the flexibility to render different resources for the source that we have here defined. And that is done by passing the source tag. So this is also a new HTML tag which lives inside the picture. And what is good that inside the picture element we can have multiple sources. So we can say that for this image we have all kind of different sources. And what the browser will do when the browser renders this picture is that the browser will look at the first source. And if the first source satisfies the criteria to render the image, the browser will render it. If the first source doesn't satisfy the criteria to render the image, then it will fall back to the next one, and then finally to the image tag.
The image tag.
Yes. So here the order is important, and where we have the image, the kind of the image tag always sitting last. So then the browser can fall back to it. So let's see what we can actually do with the source tag. For this demo, as you can see actually here, as I said earlier, the actual size that the browser rendered this picture is close to 700 pixels. So it's 688. So it's close to 700 pixels. And then for this demo, actually, I prepared the same image, but resized to 700 pixels. So let's see what we can do about it. So I'll just copy the source or the URL of the image. And I'll come here to the source tag. The source tag has attribute which is called srcset. And this is because this is React, right? This is camel case, but if it's in normal usage, it's going to be written like with a small letter.
In the lowercase, okay.
Yeah, and so what the source set accepts is a kind of a source for a resource, and then what is the width of it. So this here is the resource, and then we are saying that this is 700 pixels width. And I'm going to save this, and let's see what's going to happen now. So I'll just refresh, go to the network tab, and you get to see that actually the browser immediately picked the new image. And what is good here is that the new image is just 60 kilobytes. So instead of downloading 4 megabytes, we are downloading 60 kilobytes, which is much better. We are already improving the experience, and actually we are loading the image which is close to the size that the browser is going to render. So now if I even close this one and I just refresh the page, you get to see that the
much faster,
instantly loaded because it's much smaller, right? So it just appears on the page. So this is already improvement. This is very simple improvement that with just few lines of code, we can get much better performance. So now the question comes how we can get even this further. Because when we go to mobile side screen, like a small one, the 700 pixels now it's too much because we don't need that, right? We want something that is smaller. So for this demo, I prepared also another version of the same image, but kind of resized to 300 pixels. So let's see how we can use that one. So I'll go back. So the source set attributes can accept multiple sources in it, which are separated by comma. So what I can do, I can come here, paste the new source set. I can say that this is 300 pixels width and add the comma. Right, and that's enough for the browser to know that there is a different source with a width of 300 pixels. The source set also accepts a different property, which is called sizes. So this attribute actually tells the source set depends of the window viewport width which image should render, and then what it accepts? It accepts the CSS media query format here. So here we can say that at max width 500 pixels, let's say, when the viewport width is at maximum 500 pixels, then use the 300 pixels width image. If not, this is the default value which comes last, use the 700.
Okay, so until the 500 pixels, like for example, the mobile devices will use the 300 pixels, and for other devices with more than 500 pixels width will use the 700 pixels.
Exactly. So let's see now what's going to happen here. So we start again from a big screen, and over here we see that the browser loaded the 700 pixels version, and now then I'll just resize the viewport width to be slightly below 500 pixels, so that's somewhere around here, like that. So this is below 500. So now if I refresh the page, you get immediately to see that actually the browser loaded even the smaller image, the 300 pixels, and the size of this one is just 17 kilobytes. So it's again improvement because
the size.
Yeah, because from 60 kilobytes we went down to 17 kilobytes on mobile, which is a big improvement, right? So, and we are loading actually the size that we need. We don't load the bigger one. And another thing, because we're talking about responsive images, also that if now I resize the screen, so imagine that you're on a phone and you're looking vertically, and then you just like flip it to become horizontally, then you need a bigger image, for example. And then if you just scroll here, you see that the browser immediately finds the bigger image and replaced it. So, and this just happens, right? The browser is taking care of that. You're just specifying what should happen, and the browser is doing it for you at the moment it needs to be done. That's kind of the beauty of it. Cool. So this is quite nice, and as you can see, it works. It works good. But let's take it a step further because we are now passing the size of the image that the browser needs to render. This is good, but we can go even improve further by providing a format that is a better. I'm talking about image format. So this now here is JPEG. But for example, we can pass AVIF, WebP, or whatever that has a smaller size and keeps the same look of the image. Let's see how can we do that. So for that, there is a property which is called, that's going to help us, then help the browser mainly. It is called type. So the type, and here we specify what's the type of this resource. So this is image JPEG, right? And now let's specify a different type. What I'm going to do, I'll just pass a new source element, but be careful because we want the order of elements to appear first. So we know that the new source element will be better, so this should appear first. And then we say that the type of this resource is going to be image/avif. So the avif is one of these new formats that is not fully supported everywhere yet. But wherever is supported is the preferred format, mainly because the image quality, as I said, is kind of kept very good, and the size of the image is much smaller. So let's do this. And again, for this demo, I prepared a different image, which is around, again, 700 pixels, but in AV format. So this is the image. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pass that to the source under the source set attribute. And I'll pass the source, and I'll say that this is 700 pixels, 700 width. And we have the type. Yes, that should be more than enough. So if I come here and refresh the page, you'll see immediately that the browser actually prefers the AVIF. And that's because the size here.
It's supported in Chrome.
It's supported in Chrome. The size is almost half of it because the previous one was around 60 kilobytes. Now we're at 34 for 700 pixels. And that's just done automatically, right? We don't need to do anything about it. It just happens. And what is good about it is, well, that, for example, if I go in Safari doesn't support AVIF. The Safari is one of these browsers that doesn't support it. So if I refresh the page here, and then I open the inspector, what you get to see is that actually Safari fold back to the JPEG 700 pixels, right? So Safari is still using the picture with the source of 700. It doesn't fall back to the image tag. It's using the source, but since Safari doesn't support AVIF, then it fallbacks to JPEG, and that's totally fine, and it just works. So we don't need to think about it.
Yeah. So that is the fallback for us in this case.
Yes, that's where it's very important to define the types of the source, so the browser can look at this and say, do I support AVIF? Yes, no. If it's no, then it goes to the next source and looks at it, and looks also at the other attributes, of course. Cool. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, defining the sources and images. But as you can see, this actually can become quite verbose, and I think this is maybe the breakthrough point where a lot of developers decide to kind of go for it, but then it then becomes very complicated, kind of specifying all the different sources, sizes, and
Yeah, if
depends
they
on
have
how
to
it's used.
maintain that
Yeah.
that piece of code with all the images, all the sizes.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
prepare the variants in different formats, AVIF, different sizes. Becomes kind of quite complicated, and that I think that's the place where a lot of developers give up, when actually they should exactly push there and go for it, because this is really improving the user experience and the overall loading of the page. So, but what can we do there really to kind of help developers and give them the way to easily go around it, but at the same time use it? And I think this is where actually Crystallize comes really handy, because in Crystallize, every time when we upload a new image, what Crystallize is going to do on the background for you is to create different variants for the image for you out of the box without even asking about it. So as you can see here in the GraphQL response, we are getting images in different formats created for us. So this is in AVIF, this is in WebP, in JPEG. And as you can see also that these images, they have different width. So it generates like
the different sizes.
Different sizes for the pictures, exactly. So this is just given for you. It just automatically happens. You don't need to think about it. It's just there. You need to use it. Okay, so kind of the backend part is more or less solved just by uploading an image in Crystallize. Then what we can do on the client is the question, right? So how we consume that. And to consume that, actually, we have a package here at Crystallize/React.js components, and that is the image component. So what we can do with the image component is just we can pass those variants that are generated, and the image component is going to take care of rendering for us. So let's try that. So I'm going to copy this import statement, and I'm going to add here.
You already have this package installed, right?
Yes, so I already have this package installed, so I can use it straight away. And what I'm going to say here is that I say that I need the variants. The variants actually have the URL as a string, and then it has also the width as a number. It has also the height, which we can pass if you want, and then we can take the variants over here. And what we're going to do, so I'm just going to delete all of this that is really not needed. Maybe I'll just keep the sizes. So I'll delete all of this, which is not really needed anymore, this complexity. And then I will replace this with the image tag from Crystallize. And the image component doesn't accept the width, but it accepts the sizes. So I will just paste the one that I had defined earlier, and the height here is not needed. So that's all. So as you can see, this kind of simplifies the logic. So let's try and pass the variants to this image and see what's going to happen. So this is the code for the product page, and this is where I get the URL and the variants from Crystallize. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pass them down to the product image component. That's all. And now let's go back to the page and see what's going to happen. So as you can see, okay, did I save? This is the variants, passing it down. Oh, I forgot here to pass the variants to the component. Yeah, so this is another thing, right? So the Crystallize image component, if you don't pass the variants, you pass just the source, it works as before.
So it's our first iteration.
Yeah, so it's exactly the way that we started with. No problem if there are no variant generated or whatever, it's totally fine.
It's using the original image. Okay.
Yes, and then when we have the variants, we can just pass them over here. Yes. So width number, I think it should be correct. So let's see now if I refresh, what's going to happen here. As you can see, we immediately fetch the AVIF version of it with the size of 768 because this is the predefined size, right? And then our image is actually 700 pixels. So the browser fetches the first most appropriate one. And the first and most appropriate one is AVIF with a width of 768 pixels. And how this looks on the page actually. So as you can see, what the image component will do for you, it will grab all the variants that we generate on the backend, and then it will set also the width for you that the image has, and then it will pass the sizes that we pass to the component. And this will automatically generate all the sources for AVIF, all the sources for WebP. You can see here the type and the default JPEG, and then it's going to pass the original image component.
Okay.
So all of that is just taken care. And now if I go to kind of a smaller screen size, whatever, something like below 500 pixels, let's say, what you get to see is that actually the browser fetches now the 500 pixels because this is the minimum kind of that the source that satisfies the criteria. As you see, it's like just happens. We don't need to worry about writing different variants and options. It's just there. And this TypeScript complains something about it, but I think that's going to be fine. We don't need the full type check here. Cool. So this works, and it's kind of quite straightforward. But let me show you one additional feature of the responsive images, and I think a few people use, but it's very powerful, and they should consider it. So quite often it happens actually that when we're on desktop, we can render big images and show more details of the image, right? Like this one, for example. See, the product is just tiny bit piece in the middle with a lot of nice decorations whatsoever. This kind of makes sense when we're on a desktop, but when we go to mobile experience, right? Then as you can see, the product is like almost gone there. It's very hard to see it, and there are a lot of additional details that we don't need. So what we can do with the picture tag and the sources, right, is that we can specify different images actually based on the viewport width. And this is quite straightforward the way that it was working before. So let's go back to the image element that I had originally. Cool, and let's write that down. So this is going to be a picture again. Then I pass the fallback value, and then here is the source. And in the source, we're going to have a new attribute that I didn't mention earlier, but it's called media. So what the media decides is that this is like a condition for rendering this source or not. So the media specifies the viewport width. And here what we're going to do, we're going to specify the viewport width. And if the browser satisfies that criteria for viewport width, then it's going to render this source. So let's again do the same exercise with max width 500 pixels. And then, so if the viewport is less than 500 pixels, the browser is going to render this source. And then it
will use that one.
Yes. And if it's less than that, then again, for this demo, I prepared a cropped version of the image. So this is the original image that has more details, but like when it comes to mobile, we want to use the cropped version where we focus just on one piece, on the which is important, right? So then I'll copy this option and I'll pass it to the source, and I'll say that this is 300 pixels, 300 width. Cool. And then I will pass a new source, which will be kind of the fallback or the default one. For that one, I'm not going to use media because if the first one is not satisfied, then it's going to go to the next one. And for this one, I'm going to use the 700 pixels JPEG. And I'll say here 700. Cool. So let's see now what's going to happen. Already spoiled. So refresh. So this is where we render the big image. As you can see here, it's 700 pixels. Yep. And now if I scroll the screen and I go below 500, boom. You see, now it's rendering the cropped version of the image because the viewport is less than 500. That satisfies the source, and the browser automatically just renders it. And what is good here is that if I go back, see, this is where the responsive images comes. Now we are rendering again the big image because the viewport is bigger than 500 pixels.
So we can show the full picture.
So we can show the full picture, and regardless if the user is using a phone or a tablet and they rotate the device, always going to render the exact image that the browser needs and the browser can render based on the viewport, which is really nice. This is very powerful technique, and I think people do not take enough advantage of it, even it's like something so simple to define.
Yeah, and that gives like a really different user experience, because on a mobile device, probably you want to see a bit more detail on the product that you are maybe trying to buy, and showing like a more zoomed image of the product, it might be a way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're also serving the more focused image which is exact size with the better format. There are like bunch of advantages here to going that way. Maybe I can briefly mention here that also there are a few other techniques which can be used for improving performance of loading images. And the simplest one is actually using the loading attribute of the image component. And this one takes a value of lazy. So what this is going to do when we pass the loading lazy to the image is that when we load the page, if the image is below the viewport, then the browser is not going to load it. But the moment we start scrolling down and getting close to that image, the browser then knows and is going to fetch that image and display it for you. So
okay,
then,
so we can also save some bytes there if we don't even like scroll, right?
exactly, yeah. Because why do we need to load the whole page when we are not needing it, for example?
Yeah, exactly.
This is just loading on demand, and also it improves the initial load, which is very important. So we just load what we need, and then we leave the browser available for the user to click around or whatever they need to do their job.
Pretty cool.
So that's what I prepared for this demo. I hope it makes sense, and it's something
Yes,
that's
totally.
inspired just to try it and use it. It's really straightforward, and it's very powerful actually. Thing that we can achieve with just few lines of code.
Yeah, with just a couple of attributes on the HTML element.
Yeah.
This was a really insight one. Just to wrap it up, with Crystallize, you will get like all the variants out of the box without you need to do anything, right?
Yeah.
We will prepare those images for you, and you will have it on your API. And with in conjunction with a React component, then like it's straightforward, right?
Yeah. So you just upload your image and render it on the page with the sizes you need without really worrying about it of how this works. But of course, it's always good to know what are the mechanisms behind it, right? So you're like a good
Yes,
developer.
of course. Definitely. Okay, I guess for now it's everything. It was really insightful. I hope you have enjoyed it. I have learned a couple of new things, because whenever I need to use the image, I always need to look up. So I guess right now I got it.
Nice. Cool.
All right, everybody. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you in the next one.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.